but my recall may not all be that good. If anybody is kind of new to the class, I would love to hear how you found out about it, and um, you know, just what you might like to get out of the class. Just kind of curious. You don't have to unmute and say hello, but if you'd like to, we would love to hear from you. So now's the time.
I'll mute myself.
Okay, thank you. Everybody been here before, or any new people? How'd you hear about the class? We're just kind of curious. And maybe everybody's been here before. What do you think? That would be good,
Yeah.
I guess. We have an important topic to talk to you all about tonight. It's how what we eat affects our environment. We talk a lot about how individual health is affected. And as you'll learn tonight, or maybe you've even thought about it already, if we don't have an environment, a planet that we can actually live on, it probably doesn't make much difference if we spend a lot of time trying to make ourselves healthier. If there is, our home gets burned up, or we get flooded out with hurricane, or whatever natural disaster may occur in our life. So this really is important. And as you'll learn tonight, what we choose for our food source can have a huge impact on how it affects our environment. So with that said, we're going to open up one more time. You don't have to say whether you're new, but maybe you have a question or anything that's concerning you, or burning on your mind. We want these classes for you. So if you have some question, I'm sure others in the class would be interested also. Now's the time to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and say hello, and what questions you might have. Maybe you've been to so many classes, you don't have that many questions, and you're checking to see if we have something new to offer. And tonight we'll give it our best shot, try to make it interesting for you. I hate to be bored. We have a number of really good videos, and Scott is going to show us some resources on the website. And again, if you're shy to speak up now, feel free as we continue on through tonight to just put it in the chat, raise your hand, unmute yourself, and say, I have a question. No problem. Okay. All right.
Want me to show on the website?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. Fire away and have fun.
I'll just show since you guys have all been here, you already know about the website and stuff. So just gotta get to this here. Get this to pull down so I can get that. Let's see. Oops. This is in the way. Trying to get this to pull down. Sorry, there we go. All right, so on the home page of the website, go to resources. So click on resources, and I have different handouts from the classes, but sometimes for just other handouts, I have them here on the resources page. So I do have one related to tonight's class, plant-based diet and the environment. It's a link actually to Dr. McDougall's website, where he has a whole bunch of information, a bunch of resources about environmental. He's in his 70s like Charlie, and he's been talking about diet and health for 50 years, and he's now, because he has grandkids and everything, he's thinking more about the planet and the environment these days. And so he has a whole news section on his website related to the environment. So scroll through it. There's a whole bunch of handouts, has resources for everything, and great articles all related to the what we choose to eat and the environment. So this, hopefully tonight will spark your appetite, and then you can get more information here. And then I have a few factoids that I'll share. This might be a good time to do that too,
Sure.
before we get in about environmental stuff. Just one, this will be recorded. So if you miss this or don't write it, or you want to write it down, because I think it's important for those of us that, if you do care a lot about the environment, or you have maybe younger family members, because a teenager or 20-something kid isn't going to really care necessarily about their health all that much, but they do care about environmental issues and social justice and animal cruelty and things like that. So that even though you might be trying to get your other family members or friends that are younger to kind of eat the way you're eating or trying to eat, sometimes a health reason might not be their motivator, but something like environment might be. So just you'll get a bunch more facts tonight, but a couple things I wanted to share is it only takes 7 acres of land to feed 100 people on a plant-based diet. So 7 acres to feed 100 people on a plant-based diet.
Wow.
For the same 100 people that are eating the standard American diet, it takes 124 acres. So it takes 124 acres of land to feed 100 people on the standard American diet, but it only takes 7 acres of land to feed 100 people on a plant-based diet. And then another interesting fact is 77% of all agricultural land on the planet. So this is the whole entire planet. 77% of agricultural land use on the planet is dedicated to livestock. But livestock only accounts for 18% of global calorie intake. So 77% of all of the agricultural land on the planet only produces 18% of the calories for the planet, and only 37% of the world's protein supply. So that more than 2/3, almost over 3/4 of all the agricultural land for livestock, which only accounts for 18% of the calories produced and 37% of the world's protein supply. So those are some pretty mind-blowing figures there. So that's all I had there for those two things. The website with the resources and some of those facts. So I'll stop sharing.
Thanks for sharing that, Scott. Now,
Yeah.
Scott just has kind of sent information to the left side of your brain, I believe, kind of more thinking aspect and facts and figures. And now I'm going to start out tonight with a little movie clip for you, which is going to stimulate your right side of brain, or the emotional center. So we're going to kind of try to hit both sides tonight of not only your emotions, because it may help motivate some people to make intelligent choices for themselves and for their family. So we're going to share my screen here, and we're going to go to the first clip. Can you see this, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. It says, "Eating Our Way to Extinction," the official trailer. So let's get a little emotional here first, then we'll get on to some more facts and figures. Here we go.
Our Earth. Ever in flow and motion. A dynamic symphony of forces, all working together. But in recent years, it's beginning to become clear that our world is poorly prepared to cope. And time is running out.
Every continent is burning. People are losing their homes, ecosystems are being destroyed. We're now over the line.
Over 26,000 species are currently threatened with extinction.
It doesn't even make the headlines. No one even knows about it.
There seem to be some serious conflicts of interest going on.
The industry is just concerned with growth.
This was the elephant in the room no one wanted to talk about.
I want others to see for themselves. This is all we've got.
this little blue miracle.
This planet is our home, and it is up to us what happens now. History has shown that when we stand together, we can achieve great things. The clock is ticking.
That's our first little video. And before I get on to the next little video, I just wanted to kind of discuss with you what my thoughts are a little bit about this. It said that not everybody's aware of this. I think we're all pretty much aware of the hurricanes, the fires, the floods. It's pretty incredible, actually. I've been on this planet for pretty soon 75 years. And I've been observing what's been happening for a good, 60 of those years, I guess, since I was 15, maybe a little before then. You know, as a kid, I might not have much of a clue. As an adult, I tend to think about my kids and my grandkids, and I want something for them. So they will have some place to live regardless of what happens with me. And I think a number of you who are showing up at today's meeting may have similar thoughts. So to kind of let the cat out of the bag, for those of you who are ready to kind of get on to some other issue tonight and say, you know, I got a lot of things to do. If you could just take home one point from tonight, the one thing that you could do that really could contribute to helping our environment, decreasing global warming, decreasing the use of our water resources, our land resources, stop polluting our oceans. The one thing you could do is encourage and vote for a way that we can continue to transition as quickly as possible away from raising livestock for our food source and instead transition to plant foods. So that's the message that I hope you can take home. And with that said, I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go to Dr. Greger. And we're going to see what he has to say about diet, climate change, cooking up a storm.
One of the most prestigious medical journals in the world editorialized that climate change represents the biggest global health threat of the 21st century. And currently, chronic diseases are by far the leading cause of death. Might there be a way to combat both at the same time? For example, riding our bikes instead of driving is a win-win-win for people, planet, and pocketbook. Good for us, the environment, and cheaper too. Are there similar win-win situations when it comes to diet? Well, the same foods that create the most greenhouse gases appear to be the same foods that are contributing to many of our chronic diseases. Meat, fish, eggs, and dairy were found to have the greatest environmental impact, whereas grains, beans, fruits, and vegetables had the least impact. And not only did the foods with the heaviest environmental impact tend to have the lower nutritional quality, but also a higher price per pound, thereby scoring that win-win-win scenario. The European Commission, the governing body of the European Union, commissioned a study on what individuals can do to help the climate. In terms of transport, if Europeans started driving electric cars, it could prevent as much as 174 million tons of carbon from getting released. We could also turn down the thermostat a bit, maybe put on a sweater. But the most powerful thing people can do, shift to a meat-free diet. What we eat may have more of an impact on global warming than on what we drive. Even just cutting out animal protein intake one day of the week could have a powerful effect. So even just like meatless Mondays may beat out working from home all week and not commuting. And a strictly plant-based diet may be better still, responsible for only about half the greenhouse gas emissions. Overall, studies have suggested that moderate dietary changes are not enough to reduce impacts from food consumption drastically. Changes to healthier diets without significant meat and dairy intake reductions may only result in rather minor reductions of environmental impacts. This is because the average fossil energy input for animal protein production systems is like 25 calories of fossil energy input for every 1 calorie produced, more than 11 times greater than for grain protein production, for example, which is down around 2 to 1. Researchers in Italy compared 7 different diets to see which one was environmentally friendliest. They compared a conventional omnivorous diet adhering to dietary guidelines to an organic omnivorous diet, conventional vegetarian, organic vegetarian, conventional vegan, and organic vegan to what the average person actually eats. For each dietary pattern, they looked at carcinogens, air pollution, climate change, effects on the ozone layer, the ecosystem, acid rain, and land, mineral, and fossil fuel use, and this is what they came up with. This is how many resources it took to feed people on their current diets, and this is the negative effects the diet is having on the ecosystem and the adverse effects on human health. Now, if they were eating a healthier diet conforming to the dietary recommendations, the environmental impact would be significantly less. An organic omnivorous diet would be better, similar to a vegetarian diet of conventional foods, beaten out by an organic vegetarian diet, conventional vegan, and organic vegan diet. The Commission report described the barriers to animal product reduction, largely lack of knowledge, ingrained habits, and culinary cultures. Proposed policy measures include meat or animal protein taxes, educational campaigns, and putting the greenhouse gas emissions info right on food labels. Climate change mitigation is expensive. A global transition to even just a low-meat diet, as recommended for health reasons, could reduce these mitigation costs. A healthier low-meat diet would cut the cost of mitigating climate change from about 1% of GDP by more than half. A no-meat diet could cut 2/3 of the cost, and a no-animal product diet could cut the cost 80%. But many aren't aware of the cow in the room. It seems that very few people are aware that the livestock sector is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, but that's changing. The UK's National Health Service is taking a leading role in reducing carbon emissions. Patients, visitors, and staff can look forward to healthy, low-carbon menus with much less meat, dairy, and eggs. For evidence shows that, as far as the climate is concerned, meat is heat. The Swedish government recently amended their dietary recommendations to encourage citizens to eat less meat. Even if we seek only to achieve the conservative objective of avoiding further long-term increases in greenhouse gas emissions from livestock, we are still led to rather radical recommendations, such as cutting current consumption levels in half in affluent countries, an unlikely outcome if there were no direct rewards to citizens for doing so. Fortunately, there are such rewards, or important health benefits. By helping the planet, we can help ourselves.
So I hope that you all by this point understand. I'm going to stop for a moment. I hope that at this point that you all understand how this could be a win-win situation, how you can help the planet, and how you could also help your individual health or the health of your family members. Anybody have any thoughts about that, or dispute? Days past, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we had class members who stood out and were kind of a bit skeptical of this concept. But I think most people are more understanding of what's happening. Anybody? Trouty, you unmuted.
No, not tonight. I'm beat out tonight.
Okay. All right, well, we just want to make sure that we'll just put it back so that I won't call. And no one has to speak up. I just thought I'd give you a little chance. You know me, I've got another video, so we're gonna just keep carrying on. Just speak up as I start going toward the next video. And we'll try.
Eating ourselves to extinction documentary. A lot of what she was talking about, what it addresses in the movie, is the kind of the what you haven't really heard about happens to be that nobody really talks about how our food affects the environment. Everybody always talks about, oh, just we need to recycle more, and we need to switch to electric cars and alternative power sources, and all those things are important. But what would have even greater impact is what we choose to eat. But that's a very political, it's very personal, cultural. There's so many things that are so many barriers to that. So that's why you don't hear politicians talking about that much, because they have, a lot of the money that they receive for their campaigns are coming from the meat and dairy industries and all that. So it's not really in their best interest to talk about it. It's political suicide, so to speak. So that's part of the reason you have to come here to hear about it, because you won't hear about it in a lot of places, or a documentary or something.
And with that, over the last couple of weeks, Bill Gates just came out and said that the one thing that we have not been addressing is raising livestock as a contributor to global warming. So this is becoming much more mainstream. And I have hope that it'll continue in that direction. Okay, let's go. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wish that President Bill Clinton would say something too, since he's been on a plant-based diet. It would be nice if he did it for his health, but it would be nice if he spoke up about it for the environment. Or maybe
Yeah, I don't know whether he has or not. I haven't heard him say about the environment, but yeah, the more people that have been in influential positions, the better it will be, and the sooner we'll accomplish this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me continue on here then, and we are going to go on to how much water goes into an 8-ounce steak. Scott kind of alluded to this a little bit, but this may help bring a little bit more emotion into your life. That was a 7-hour shower.
I love how they had a frozen hamburger. They're terrible. They could have at least made it look like it's supposed to on a commercial, but I guess that was part of the point.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't actually see that in the past, but that's pretty funny. All right, now we're going on to the next. Why beef is the worst food for the climate? Let's take a look at the next one.
The chart I'm building shows the greenhouse gas emissions from producing 1 kilogram of some common foods. In other words, it shows how much they contribute to global climate change. Most fruits and vegetables are down here with relatively low emissions. Poultry and eggs are a little further up, Pig products are here. Coffee and chocolate are a little higher. But all of these pale in comparison to this food. It's the worst thing we eat when it comes to global warming. This is beef. When you only account for the emissions that go into the processing, transportation, packaging, and selling of a food product, the difference between these foods isn't so great. When you add the emissions from growing and processing food for livestock, you can see that animal products have higher emissions than vegetables. But the real gap comes from these two factors: the emissions associated with the farming process and the impact of land use change. Coffee has such a big footprint because of the fertilizers farmers use to grow it, which emit a lot of the greenhouse gas nitrous oxide. The farming process also accounts for most of the disparity between cow and sheep products and everything else. Cows and sheep have to digest food that most animals can't do as well, like grass and tough plant material. Their stomachs are microbe-rich to help them do that through a process called enteric fermentation. The byproduct of this digestion is methane, a powerful greenhouse gas. Some of those emissions come out this way, but 95% come out the front. If you've never heard one of these animals burp, there's an endless supply of YouTube videos for your viewing pleasure.
Really?
That was rude, sir.
Jokes aside, though, methane is a huge contributor to climate change. It's the second most emitted greenhouse gas after carbon dioxide. But it traps more heat than carbon dioxide. Its global warming potential over 100 years is 21 times higher. Among human-related activities, enteric fermentation is the biggest contributor to methane emissions globally, more so even than the methane emissions from burning fossil fuels. And it's a big reason why the farming process-related emissions for beef and sheep are so high. The second reason is land use change. Starting in the 1700s, the amount of land developed for humanity's purposes started to skyrocket. Only a tiny amount of this is due to our built environment, like cities, towns, and other infrastructure. A vast majority is for agriculture. And when you divide that up, you see that land for grazing animals far surpasses land for growing crops. Converting all that land to farms to make way for grazing or growing crops releases the carbon that was once stored in trees, other plants, and the soil. By contrast, nuts and citrus fruit and olive oil have negative land use emissions because planting nut and citrus fruit and olive trees is reforesting cropland. But chocolate has a lot of land use emissions because cacao farming results in tropical deforestation in Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America. And grazing animals take up a lot of space compared to crops. 80% of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest, for example, is to make way for cattle ranching. This is how many tons of greenhouse gases per capita we emit through all of our activities. Changing our diet to exclude high-emission foods has the potential to reduce it by 28%, by both reducing emissions and reforesting land. That's more than any other life change we could make. A lot of food emissions are unavoidable. We have to eat. But we do have a choice of what not to eat.
So that was a statement at the end as she's pulling off the beef. And I'm gonna play one more video about you cannot be a non-vegan environmentalist. A number of environmentalists have continued to eat the standard American fare. And let's see this last one, then we'll stop for a bit, see if you have any questions.
Today we're going to talk about a really inconvenient truth. You cannot be an environmentalist and a non-vegan. Now, in my very first nugget ever, I touched on the environmental impact of the animal products industry. Today we're going to compare the benefits to the environment that the typical going green methods have to the impact that you have by making shifts in your diet. Oftentimes the most passionate, vigilant, and militant environmentalists still eat animal products. Let's take a look at why that is stupid. We're going to focus on the elements of environmentalism that you most often hear about: water, paper, meaning trees, and CO2 emissions. Let's start with water. Now, one of the common water-saving tips that you hear is to get a water-efficient shower head. The typical shower head emits 5 gallons per minute. Most water-efficient shower heads emit 2.5 gallons per minute. Say that you take 10-minute showers every day. You're going to save 9,125 gallons every year. If you take a 15-minute shower every day, you're going to save 13,687.5 gallons every year. The average U.S. citizen eats 185 pounds of meat every year, and 62.4 pounds of that is beef. So every year, the average American is using 156,000 gallons of water for their beef consumption alone. If you didn't eat any meat for an entire year, conservatively, you'd be saving 339,900 gallons. The average American also eats 632 pounds of dairy. Every pound of dairy takes approximately 600 gallons of water. So if you stopped eating dairy for an entire year, you would save 379,200 gallons. Now here's the real testament. If you went an entire year without eating any meat or dairy, you would be saving 719,100 gallons of water for that year. That's the same amount of water as if you didn't shower at all for 53 years if you took a 15-minute shower, or 79 years if you took 10-minute showers. So what's really making the best environmental impact as far as water is concerned? So maybe a full year with no meat or dairy is a little too much for you to handle right now. But what about not eating 1 pound of beef? You'd be saving the same amount of water as if you didn't shower for 100 showers. That's 3.5 months of not showering just for 1 pound of beef. I hope you're starting to see how huge the impact of diet is on the environment. Now it's time for paper. What you most often hear for helping the environment is to start going paperless, and also to recycle whatever paper you do use. On average, a person uses between 5 and 8.51 40-foot trees every year. And if you recycle 1 ton of paper, that's 2,000 pounds. You'll be saving about 17 trees. And now for dietary impact. I'm only going to use the data for beef right now, because it is the meat that's had the most environmental impact studies done. To produce 1 pound of beef, it takes approximately 55 square feet of rainforest, which, depending on the area, is anywhere between 45 and 55 trees. So if you didn't use any paper at all for an entire year, you'd be saving at most 8.51 trees. Whereas if you avoid just 1 pound of beef, you're saving 45 to 55 trees. Now, if you went an entire year without eating any beef, you'd be saving 3,432 trees. By not eating beef for an entire year, and we're not even talking about any other animal products at this point, you would still be saving 3,406.49 more trees than if you didn't use any paper for the entire year and recycled an entire ton. And how about toilet paper? The average US person uses 50 pounds of toilet paper every year. Let's say, dear Americans, that you went an entire year without using any toilet paper. You would be saving a measly 0.425 trees. Now for CO2. The animal products industry is the largest sole contributor to climate change and is responsible for emitting 2,964 million tons of CO2 every year. Now let's compare the CO2 emissions of the average car to that of the meat, dairy, and egg industries. When people talk about saving CO2, you always hear about hybrid cars. The average passenger car is going to emit 5.1 tons of CO2 per year. Now, different hybrid cars have different CO2 emissions. If you decided to drive a Prius instead of your average car, you'd be saving 1.7 tons of CO2 every year, whereas going a year without just beef saves 5.5 tons of CO2. And now for a simplified version, you could drive about 600 miles from the CO2 that's produced by 1 pound of beef. Now, believe it or not, this is the tip of the iceberg. We're not even going to go into nitrogen from fertilizer and feed production, the issue of methane, or the over 500 million tons of fecal matter produced by livestock every year. In summary, never showering, never using paper, never using toilet paper, recycling an entire ton of paper, and never driving don't even come close to making the environmental impact of switching to a vegan diet. Now, it doesn't have to be all at once. Every little bit counts. Thanks for sticking with me through all the numbers. This nugget took a lot of time and research, so please like it, share it, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And also visit bitesizevegan.com and subscribe to the RSS feed.
I've always enjoyed listening to that video, especially with that dog in the background, just because I'm still here. Anyway, I'm not done with videos yet, but I'm just curious if you have anybody has any thoughts about anything, any questions? I hope you're having fun. I hope this is kind of looking at things in a slightly different way, or maybe a major different way from how you've kind of thought about this and the impact that raising livestock and eating animal products has on our environment. Most of us, before I saw these videos, and I had them researched by an environmental person when I was down in Roseburg, to see their accuracy. And he said, even if they are somewhat off, even if you cut it in half, the numbers that are used, it's still very, very impressive and something we should all consider when we're making our food choices. So I'm going to go back and see what the gallery has to say here, if there are any thoughts or suggestions from anyone. I don't see
The other thing I wanted to, the other thing I wanted to add was just that the Eat Lancet Commission, so that's a fairly new group of researchers, a bunch of different scientists, nutritional scientists, environmental scientists, kind of feeding the planet, kind of sustainability. So there are all these different areas around surrounding food got together, called the Eat Lancet Commission, and they put out something called the True Health Initiative. And what it looks at is what's the world need to do to, but not just for health, but also for feeding all the people on the planet, 9 billion people, so sustainability and environmental impacts, kind of a very thoughtful way to look at diet on the planet and what we can do to kind of have that win-win-win, like we've been talking about. And they're promoting a mostly plant-based diet, but there's I think one thing to add that was important that I learned from watching some of their lectures and on their website and stuff too, is that there are certain places in the world where they depend on fish and animal products just to get enough calories to sustain themselves. So they had to kind of look at it from a global standpoint. So even though it would be better for Americans to eat all plant-based for the health reasons and also for the environmental and things too, but there are places like in third world countries and other places on the planet where it's not possible for them to be completely plant-based. They have to depend on certain animal products just to get enough calories so they don't starve. And so they kind of look at it from a global standpoint, and even then, after that was all said and done, it's still kind of like the blue zones. It's still 90-95% plant-based foods. And so I think that was really a real eye-opener too, and a good way to, it's not a biased look at it. It's just looking at it from a global standpoint with health and sustainability and environment and all that. So check out the Eat Lancet Commission, the True Health Initiative is a good resource.
Susan.
Well, Scott just answered my question, True Health Initiative. I wanted to make sure I got that right. Thank you. Also, Gary was wondering about lab meat. I mean, I'm not interested in eating it personally, but do you know about that? Well, of course, that wouldn't take all those resources for people who did like the taste of meat or what they get out of it, whatever it is.
Yeah,
so
that's a great topic. Yeah, I have read about that and seen a lot on that as well. So that's a great point you're bringing up. It's not great it's not the triple win. It's not good for your health, but it would be good for the animals and sustainability and the planet. Because with just some animal stem cells, with just a few cells, they can grow thousands and thousands of pounds of meat, and so people could still get their meat, which would still be not good for health, but at least it'd be good for the animals and sustainability and the environment and all that. So definitely a good point to bring up.
So there wouldn't be a whole well, there wouldn't be as much water required, I would imagine, but some, some, I don't know how you would, I haven't read much about it, obviously, so I don't know
Well,
what
there
kind
would
of,
definitely be less water used. There would be
Yeah.
definitely not having the land use.
yeah, land
You
use.
likely
Yeah.
would not have the same polluting factors. But remember, if you were actually using animal products or animal cells, you would have zero fiber. And zero fiber does not add to feeding your good bacteria in the microbiome, which feeds you back the butyrate, which is anti-inflammatory, which feeds you back serotonin, which is anti-anxiety and antidepressant. So the individual health benefits surely would not be there if you used animals. But if you use products like plant-based products, like the Impossible Burgers or whatever, there you're using plants, but you're still kind of altering the I believe fiber and the other nutrients, so it's not nearly as healthy to eat the fake plant meats. But much better for the environment, definitely. And for the animals, like Scott said.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions?
I have a question. What about if you have the animals and you don't want to eat any more of the meat? What are they going to do with the animals?
Well, the animals will live their life out, and farmers will transition to different kinds of crops. And
I understand that, but do they don't mate anymore or what? Then they get extinct, these people, these animals, right?
Yeah, what happens is they're gonna use up the food source of the people who have purchased these animals, raised them for livestock, are gonna try to sell them on the open market. And if they see there's no market for them, they're gonna stop buying and raising them. And so you're gonna have a lot less of those animals raised in concentration camps.
That I definitely would hate that. But what about in India? They're walking on the streets. People don't feed them. They just
Yeah, so they have a limited supply of food. The cows that are roaming on the streets, they are not multiplying in mass like rabbits in cages. I mean, they're around and they're treated like you would want to be treated, with kindness and care, and not, so they're not going to multiply and overtake the world.
Right, that's true. I was just wondering, are the people in India healthier than the people in America? I think they would, wouldn't it?
Not anymore. No, not anymore, because they've gone away from their kind of traditional diets, and they're eating more of a westernized diet these days. So their rates of diabetes and heart disease are skyrocketing in India.
I didn't know that, but the
Oh, yes.
sanitary conditions are not as good as they're here, and that has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, it's the same way with the blue zones. The blue zones were the healthiest places on the planet 15, 20 years ago. But a lot of the blue zone communities, the younger people are transitioning to McDonald's and Wendy's and the fast foods of the West, the animal products. It lights up the brain. And unfortunately, they're trying to convince the younger generation to go back and eat like the older generation. And you know how that can go sometimes.
Yeah.
Not very well.
No. Well, thank you. I'll find out more about it now. I was reading quite a bit on that. I have some books about it.
Okay. All right. Let me play one more video, then we'll get to another question or two. and we'll go from there. This next video is how to change diet, and most of you are pretty familiar with that, but I thought it was a reasonable video, and so I thought we would share it to you, how to change your diet to fight climate change.
Want to cut carbs? Why not cut carbon instead? Eating clean and green isn't just great for your health. It's one of the single biggest things you can do to fight the climate crisis. Changing our diets is more than a fad, it's a necessity. Our sprawling modern system of food production generates a quarter of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. The world's top 5 meat and dairy producers combined emit more greenhouse gases in their entire supply chain than ExxonMobil, Shell, or BP. In the continental US, nearly half of all land. 36% of all corn and 70% of all soy grown is used just to feed livestock. When you factor in feed, transport, and animal byproducts, livestock produces up to 51% of all greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. And agriculture is responsible for 75% of global deforestation. But some forms of meat are far worse than others. Hands down, beef is the worst. Meat and dairy produce roughly the same emissions as all cars, trucks, airplanes, and ships combined. Cows aren't just energy intensive to feed and maintain. Livestock burps and farts are responsible for over 27% of methane emissions in the US. And methane is over 80 times more powerful than CO2. Even grass-fed beef can be worse for the climate because the cows spend more time burping up methane due to their longer lifespans. Lamb and farmed crustaceans also have big footprints. Pork and poultry are somewhere in the middle. And cheese production emits even more greenhouse gases than chicken. So, how can we make our diets climate friendly? There are lots of different options. Just cutting down on meat will have a substantial impact on the planet and our health. North Americans eat 6 times the medically recommended amount of red meat. But with tons of new alternatives to meat, it's easier than ever to reduce our consumption. Eating a plant-based diet also reduces our risk of diabetes, heart disease, and chronic illness. If everyone switched to a simple Mediterranean diet, rich in nuts and beans, sustainably caught fish, chicken once a week, and red meat once a month, it would be the equivalent of eliminating 1 billion polluting cars. If you want to make an even bigger impact, try going vegetarian. If everyone were to go vegetarian, food-related emissions worldwide would go down as much as 63%. But the single biggest impact would be to go vegan. Simply cutting animal products from our diets would reduce our individual carbon footprints from food up to 73%. Going vegan can have an even bigger impact than cutting down on flying or buying an electric car. 1 in 20 Americans are already meat-free. No single diet is right for everybody, but by paying attention to what we eat, we can go a long way towards fixing the planet. And you can help by putting down your knife and picking up your fork.
All right, and then I'm going to play one more video, and then we'll open up to some more questions. And this is which diets have the lowest carbon footprint. So kind of a sequel to the last one.
In what was arguably the largest ever environmental protest in the world, more than 1 million children across more than 100 countries joined a global climate march demanding that governments act. The concerns of the young protesters are justified and supported by the best available science, wrote a group of scientists and scholars. The enormous mobilization shows that young people have at least understood the situation, and we strongly support their demand for rapid and forceful action. In terms of our food supply, there are all sorts of little tweaks like feed additives that can reduce cattle belching, but put all those tweaks together, according to the prestigious Eat Lancet Commission, we're only talking about reducing agricultural greenhouse gas emissions in 2050 by about 10%, whereas if we instead switched over to plant foods, we could reduce emissions by up to 80%. All those Cow, sheep, and goat burps only represent a fraction of the greenhouse gas emissions from animal agriculture. So that's why, according to the IPCC, the official intergovernmental panel on climate change, becoming a so-called climate carnivore, just cutting down on ruminant products like beef, wouldn't reduce greenhouse gas emissions as much as eating a healthier diet and limiting meat across the board, and the fewer animal products, the better. Which diet has the least environmental impact on our planet? A systematic review found that eating completely plant-based may be the optimal diet for the environment, but it's not all or nothing. Even just cutting down on meat to under an ounce or two a day could get you half the way there in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In terms of land use, a healthier diet like a Mediterranean diet may decrease your footprint by about a quarter, whereas even more plant-based diets can drop land use 50% or more. In general, diets that include meat require about 3 times more water, 13 times more fertilizer, more than twice the energy, and 40% more pesticides than those that don't. If you look even broader at the total environmental impact of omnivorous versus vegetarian versus vegan diets, looking not just at global warming, but ocean acidification, agricultural runoff, smog ecotoxicity of the water and soil, and direct human toxicity of the air we breathe, and the water we drink, and the soil we grow our food from, eating eggs and dairy maybe 9 times worse than plants, and eating eggs, dairy, and meat maybe 17 times worse than sticking to plant foods. Oh, and as a bonus, we could feed an extra additional 350 million Americans, like an entire extra country's worth of people, more than if we eliminated food waste completely. Changing meat-eating habits would seem to be a relatively cheap and easy way to mitigate climate change, in contrast to many other factors outside our control. However, surveys suggest few seem to recognize this option of eating less meat as a significant opportunity for helping. Research has shown that consumers often underestimate the impacts of meat consumption on the environment in general and on climate change in particular. The outstanding effectiveness of the less meat option, as established by climate experts, was recognized by only 6% of Americans sampled, and that's after they were prompted to assume climate change is actually happening. There's an overwhelming scientific consensus that climate change is real and we're driving it, but only about half of U.S. adults believe it. This is not by coincidence, just like the tobacco industry tried to subvert the overwhelming evidence that smoking caused cancer. Companies like Exxon orchestrated climate change denial campaigns that stalled meaningful efforts for decades. Certainly, environmental groups should know better, though. None of the highest-profile NGOs examined appear to want to feature the link between meat consumption and climate change. They're all aware of the evidence, of course, but evidently the science alone was not sufficient. It's like another form of denialism that can become like a negative feedback loop, right? Where it's not popular to talk about, so you don't talk about it, so it remains not popular to talk about, depriving the issue of the attention it needs to break out. And when they have messaged about it, environmental groups have tended to favor just, asking for a moderate, reduction in meat consumption. Notable given the research demonstrating how much more powerful a lever it could be at the individual level to go even further. But they don't want to be seen as telling people what to do. Instead they're advocating for small changes like turning off your computer monitor at lunchtime or printing double-sided. But the cumulative impact of large numbers of individuals making just marginal improvements in their environmental impact may end up, constituting just a marginal collective improvement. Yet we now live at a time when we need to make urgent and ambitious changes.
All right, I see 4 numbers in the chat. So perhaps, Scott, is there anything that you see in there?
No, those were old just comments and stuff.
They're old comments. Okay, well, let's see if we have any new comments. Joan.
Prouty brought up a good idea. What about a book? Is there a book that contains a lot of this information?
There is a book, and I'll share that book with you. I've got a PowerPoint that I'm gonna share if we have time, and
Okay,
we'll get it for you, okay?
thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, Diet for a New America has a little bit, yes. It was in the chat. John
Okay.
Robbins' book, yeah.
Great.
And I don't know if this works with the headphones on. The first movie we watched, Eating Our Way to Extinction, is available on Prime Video, and it says also on YouTube. So I guess just sharing with that with some of our friends and family might help too.
Great. Really good idea. Anyone else?
Also Seaspiracy on, I think it's still on Netflix. That's about the fishing
that's
industry in our ocean.
another really good movie. Joan,
That Seaspiracy is really good, but I wanted to know, Eating Our Way to Extinction, where is that available?
on Amazon Prime and also on YouTube.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And of course, Cowspiracy, there's the same makers as Seaspiracy. Cowspiracy came first and then Seaspiracy.
Okay, I think this was the PowerPoint that I had the reference on.
I
don't
was
like-
wondering,
Go ahead.
what if they stop these advertisements with the stakes? When you go to the airport, you see every couple of minutes that they go to the casinos and they slap that stake over. It doesn't do anything to me anymore because I'm just determined and it doesn't bother me anymore. But how many other people would be incited to eat the steak because they see that all the time? They play this over and over and over again. Maybe
Yeah.
they need to slow down a little bit with these advertisings, and maybe they should think a little bit more about the planet. I don't
That'd
know.
be nice. That'd be nice. It's a big business. It's hard to. They have a lot of money.
I know it's big business, but you know, they only live so long, and then you know what they're going to do with the money.
So if you have a photo and you want to take it, Food is Climate is the name of the book by Glenn Mercer. It's an awfully good book. And then there's the documentary Eating Our Way to Extinction and Seaspiracy. And there's an Agricultural Fairness Alliance. And then there's Climate Healers Organization. And then my granddaughter said, are you aware of Project Drawdown? And of course I was, and I was thrilled to hear that she was at least interested and knew about this, and it's becoming part of her life to figure out a way to have a smaller carbon footprint. So this is the one slide that I kind of wanted you to see.
Charlie,
Yeah, go ahead, Trotty.
are people still thinking that climate change is not real?
Yeah, there is a group of people who still feel that climate change is, that this is just normal. What happens? The Earth has its heating and cooling cycles and that.
So send them to Alaska for a change, to Anchorage. They had minus 42 degrees in the winter. That was normal. Now they have the most they ever have. The lowest temperature is 5 below, and with 2 below I didn't go out no more. But I mean, within a short time like that, that's much drop in, raise in the temperature. So they need to face reality.
Yeah, at some point, we sure hope that they do, but you know, all we can do is present the evidence as best as we can, and you know,
Yeah, some people don't want to know, no matter what. If you say it's black and they say it's white, you know, just yeah.
exactly.
You can convince people because they may have an interest in something, you know, financially or so, you know. So yeah, you have to be fair-minded in order to see what's happening.
Yes. Dave and Cherie.
Yeah. And you correct me if I'm wrong, when I watched Seaspiracy, the impression I got is they were saying there's no such thing as sustainable fishing. And that these labels that go on the packs, these companies or these organizations may have started with good intentions, but now they make all their money by basically selling the right to put the label on a can. And so they're, you know, making money. They're not going to speak up too much. And that there's not a lot of monitoring done because there's just thousands and thousands of fishing boats going out. And the other impression I got was that the farm fish was just as bad as the wild caught. And in terms of your health, it was worse. But yeah, it just opened my eyes to, everybody says fish is healthy and it's, you know, good. And according to that movie, it's not.
Right. It's always like compared to what, you know, it's always like we say in these classes, it's like, well, you know, wild caught salmon is a better choice than bacon. We could agree on that from a health standpoint, but from an environmental standpoint and all the you know, all the other toxins and stuff, all the pollutants and stuff that's also in the fish, you know, fish is not healthy compared to, you know, whole plant food. So it's kind of like, you know, pick your poison kind of a thing. So there's, you know, some truth in saying, well, there's some healthy fats in the fish, so it's a better choice than the bacon. So there's truth in that. But then, is it good? But is it good for overall? Overall, as a food, is it healthy? Well, not compared to something we can make a different choice and would be healthier, both for our health and for the planet.
So for the planet's health, we've been going over a lot of things, and I think you pretty much have the idea at this point. For individual health, I want to tell you I'm more motivated and inspired than ever because there's hope. There's hope because we actually have 4 medical students attending the classes today, everywhere from just beginning med student first year on all the way up to 4th year. And I'm so thrilled about that. I hope there will be even more students who kind of join in on these sorts of discussions. It's been a goal of mine to create an environment in which the medical students would be interested, and it'll spread to their future patients for their individual health. So I just want everybody to be aware of that, even though they're in the background and they're really calm. You know, 1 or 2 of them who are, you know, doing a little bit of counseling, and it's still available if you need some counseling. But I would like to address one more issue, and that's the issue of the animals. And we don't always get a chance to do that. And we're not going to show you anything where animals are being slaughtered or anything like that. But I'm going to take you to a video of a man who is talking to a group of adults that he gives a lecture at the high school. And it's about a 20-minute video, which may be a little bit long for some of you. It's called 101 Reasons to Go Vegan. And it is, I'm going to just play the first 20 minutes of it, only because I think it's interesting, engaging. I think you'll find it interesting and maybe want to share it with some of your friends. I don't know. And then we'll see if you have a question or two.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. My name is James, and I'm the Humane Educator for the Animal Rights Foundation of Florida. Now, I'm typically giving this presentation to a high school classroom, so my audience is a little different. And
Same level.
Same level. We'll find out. We'll find out. So I pretty much know my audience. And I can pretty much guarantee that 99% of the kids in the class are eating meat, dairy, and eggs. And there might be 1 or 2 kids who are vegetarian, but it's a very rare occasion where you'll get a kid who is vegan. When I speak to adults, it's a little different. You know, I don't quite know my audience as well. So I want to get to know you. So here's what I want everybody to do. I want everybody to please stand up. All right, now, if you are vegan, meaning you choose not to eat any meat of the animal, no flesh of the animal, no cows, no chickens, no pigs, no turkey, and no fish, all right, surprise, surprise, a fish is not a vegetable, no dairy, no cow's milk, no cow cheese, no cow butter, no cow ice cream, and no eggs, please have a seat. So if you are vegan, please have a seat. Okay. Now, for the rest of you, you'll have to remain standing for the rest of the presentation. All right, everybody have a seat. There's another benefit of talking to high school kids, and that's they're not afraid to participate in the presentation. They'll say whatever is on their mind, whether I like it or not. But with adults, it's a little bit harder. It's like pulling teeth. Now, this presentation is designed to be interactive, meaning I want you to actually participate. I want you to engage. I mean, think about the presentation. It's like a Rorschach test. Right? I show you a picture, and you tell me what you see. Right. So the maturity level is the same as high school students. It's a mushroom, people. All right. How many of you have ever seen the movie The Matrix? All right, so maybe more than half of us. All right, for those who haven't seen the movie The Matrix, there's a scene in the very beginning of the film where the main character is presented with 2 pills, one blue and one red, and he has to make a choice. If he chooses the blue pill, he'll fall asleep, and when he wakes up, everything will be exactly the way it's always been. If he chooses the red pill, he'll finally learn the truth. And I'm here today to give you that red pill. But let me make this very clear to you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you how to think, how to feel, and I'm certainly not here to tell you what to eat. I'm simply here to provide you with information. Now, what you do with that information is solely up to you. So, what does the matrix look like? Let me show you. Now, despite what you might be thinking, these 2 circles are not equal. I repeat, these 2 circles are not equal. One is in fact larger than the other. What I need you to do is determine which one that is. So, please raise your hand if you believe the blue circle is larger than the red. All right. Please raise your hand if you believe the red circle is larger than the blue. All right, very good. Now, before I said anything about these 2 circles, what was your first instinct? Equal, right? Because they look equal. And the reason why they look equal is because, in fact, they are equal. These 2 circles are identical. Yet I got just about every one of you to raise your hand and say that they're not. So what do we learn? That you can be manipulated like that to believe in something that goes against your natural instinct. Just imagine as a child you're taught that the blue circle is larger than the red. If you say it enough times, you convince yourself that's the truth. If you're told the lie enough times, it becomes part of your reality. And if enough people are taught that lie, that the blue circle is larger than the red, well, now it becomes part of the culture. And if that culture then passes that misinformation along to the next generation, well, now it becomes tradition. And what we have to remember is that just because we have a tradition doesn't mean it's morally acceptable. Tradition and morality are not always the same. I mean, can you think of any traditions that we once had in the United States of America that we no longer have? That today we think back and that was immoral? Slavery, right? Less than 200 years ago. And that was a tradition. So the traditions we have today doesn't necessarily mean they're morally acceptable. And as we evolve as a culture, so do our traditions. Now, The Matrix is a story. It's a story. When told enough times to enough people, it becomes part of that culture. It becomes the tradition. And this story is being told over and over every day. In fact, if you believe the image on the carton is where you're getting your milk from, you're deceiving yourself. This is a fantasy. It only exists in your head. It's a blue pill fed to you by the industry to get you to buy their product. This is the matrix, the lie we tell ourselves about where our food is coming from. The reality is far more disturbing. 90 to 95% of the milk, the meat, and the eggs that we consume in the United States are coming from these conditions. Now, this is called factory farming. This is where you take thousands of hens, pigs, and cows, you can find them into warehouses. In fact, every year in the United States, 10 billion, right? 10 billion cows, pigs, and chickens are being slaughtered for food. So what that works out to be is that every second in the United States, 300 animals are killed, just like that. So 300, 600, 900, 1,200. By the time I'm done talking today, there'll be over 1 million animals that have been slaughtered. And most of us don't even blink an eye. I mean, how is it possible that in the United States of America, we can slaughter 300 animals every second and not question that? Because of the story we've been told. The story justifies the action. If you say it enough times, you actually convince yourself that's the truth. How many of you were taught as a child you need to eat meat to get protein? I know I was. How many of you were taught you need to drink cow's milk to get strong bones? Not dog milk, not chimpanzee milk, not elephant milk, not rhino milk, not hippo milk, not tiger milk, not lion milk, not giraffe milk, not elephant milk. Did I say that already? I think you get the point. Not even our own mother's milk, but we need to drink cow's milk to get strong bones. The absurdity of drinking the milk from any other species and any other being besides our own mother, when it's said enough times, loses its absurdness. So all we're going to do today is find out if the Matrix is telling the truth. Now, the first thing we've been taught is that our diet is natural. We eat meat, dairy, and eggs, so therefore it must be natural. So let's find out. Now, you have two images on the wall. All right, again, remember the Rorschach test. You have two images on the wall. I want you to tell me all the thoughts that come to mind when you see the image on the left. And don't be afraid to scream out. Nobody's going to get sent to the principal. What do you see? Fresh, yum, sweet, right? If I came into the room with a basket of strawberries that looked just like that, organic, and I put him on the chair right here, now what would be your thoughts? Okay, same thoughts. What would you think if one of us got up and started chewing on the strawberries? Maybe we'd want to join in. If I come into the room with a basket of strawberries, how many of your mouth starts to salivate? Your mouth starts to water? If I take a strawberry and I put it under your nose, what do you smell? If I take a knife and I slice that strawberry in half and put that under your nose, now what do you smell? Notice how all the sensations remain the same. You see a strawberry and it looks like a strawberry. You smell a strawberry and it smells like a strawberry. And you take a bite out of a strawberry and surprise, surprise, it tastes like a strawberry. Exactly, it's a strawberry. But what thoughts come to mind when you see the image on the right? Cute. It's kind of a rigged audience. You're in a vegan restaurant. But you know, when I go to a classroom, half the response, you'll get half the kids who say, "Oh, cute. Animal, pig, Wilbur, babe." So half the class will see an animal, and the other half of the class will see bacon, sausage, ham, pig, sweet pork, and hot dog. They'll see a food. It's one or the other. You're either seeing an animal or you're seeing food. Now, what would happen if I took one of the pigs living, brought him into the room right here, and put him right in front of you? Does that change it? Now what do we see? And I mean, what would we think if one of us got up and started chewing on the pig? Not very normal. If I come into the room with a pig under my arm, how many of your mouth starts to salivate? Right? If I take a pig and I put it under your nose, what do you smell? You smell a pig. Just like if I took a dog and put it under your nose, you smell a dog. A cat, you smell a cat. If I took a knife and I sliced that pig in half and put that under your nose, now what do you smell? You smell the stench of death. You smell a rotting corpse, bacteria, decomposing flesh. You see, there's a process involved, and I'm here today to show you that process of how you convert this animal into this product. Why should it be kept a secret? Why should we not know what we're participating in and what we're putting in our body? Now, let's make the situation slightly more realistic. If I were to put a pig on this side of the room living and a butcher's knife on side of that room, I mean, how many people would be willing to pick up the knife and take the life of that animal? It's very rare, right? And if somebody did that, that's all right, but how many people in this room would try to stop that person from doing that, right? Would we try that? Of course. That's compassion. I mean, that is the greatest quality in the human race. There's no other species on this planet that has that level of compassion to extend to all living beings. But if you would stop somebody from killing a pig in front of you and then go home and have this for breakfast, that's called hypocrisy. You know, just because it comes in a nice, neat package all dressed up in your supermarket, just because you didn't take the knife and shove it through their jugular, just because you didn't get blood on your clothes, and just because you didn't hear their screams doesn't mean you didn't participate in the killing. Every time we buy this product, we are supporting somebody else doing what we ourselves wouldn't want to do, what we ourselves wouldn't want to see, and what we ourselves wouldn't want to hear. Now, if you still see bacon, sausage, and ham when I bring a pig into the room, what happens when I change it to... Ooh, one sec. I'm supposed to like not. There we go. All right. Oh, right. It's the common response. No, I've never heard anybody say yum. Nobody ever sees dog feet, hot dog. So why not? Why don't we see a food? Well, we've been accustomed to view this animal as our pet. I mean, how many of you have a dog or a cat, right? How many of you have a pig? Not so much. All right, so, but there are other cultures. There are other cultures. Again, the cultural story for us is, this is your pet. In another culture, certain parts of the world, they eat cats and dogs. That's their culture. That's their story they've been told. And how do we feel about that? A lot of people think it's disgusting, right? I imagine every one of you probably thinks it's disgusting to eat a dog. Why would it be disgusting to eat this animal and not disgusting to eat this animal? Why would it be wrong to eat this animal and right to eat this animal? And most importantly, why would it be wrong to kill this animal and right to kill this animal?
Culture.
It's culture. It's the story. It's the matrix that we've been told. One culture sees this as a pet, this is a food. Another culture might see this as a pet and this as a food. Another culture might see them both as food. Certain parts of India, the cow is sacred. They would never think about eating a cow in certain parts of India. Is that wrong? Is that unnatural? That's just the story they've been told. But culture is just a story. That's all it is. It's just make-believe. What I'm concerned with is what is natural to the human species. Because every culture has a different story. But you take somebody from Asia, Africa, South America, North America, Europe, and we're all the same species. We're all human beings. So let's take a 3-year-old from any country in the world, and you put that 3-year-old in a room, and you line up 5 animals in front of that 3-year-old. A pig, a dog, a cow, a cat, and a chicken. Do you think the 3-year-old is going to know which one to eat and which one to pet? What's the 3-year-old most likely going to do, or try to do? Play with them all. It's going to try to play with them all. The 3-year-old has to be taught, no, 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 no. Don't play with him. Eat him. Play with him, pet him. That's what we were taught. We didn't choose our diet. Our diet is a learned behavior. We were raised to perceive this animal as your pet and this animal as your food. But that's not the natural perception. The natural perception is that they're all of our companions. So our parents chose our diet based upon the cultural story. And if you have children, you base their diet on the cultural story being told, which is the same story. Now, let me give you another example. If you take a baby and you put a baby in a crib and you put on the right side a baby chick and on the left side an apple, which one do you think the baby's going to try to play with and which one do you think the baby's going to try to eat? Most likely, I put the inanimate object, in this case the apple, in his or her mouth. And if the baby, most likely will be piqued by the interest of the thing moving, in this case the thing being actually a living being in the chick. Now, if the baby tries to eat the chick, what's the chick going to do? It's going to run away or peck at him. Now, if you walked into a room with a baby in a crib, playing with an apple and chewing on the head of a live chick, what would you think of that baby? It's like demon baby? You gonna allow that demon baby to play with your baby instead of a play date? Probably not. So if it's not all right for a baby to cause harm to an animal, even when they don't know any better, why does it become more acceptable as we get older, when we do know the difference between an apple and a baby chick? The question is, do we find it acceptable to cause harm to an animal? Well, let's find out. If you don't walk outside right now and you saw somebody taking a baseball bat to a dog's head, what would you do? You take action. At the very least, you'd call the police because you recognize that as a violation of this animal's right to be free from harm. We're all given that right at birth. Every animal on this planet, whether it's a mammal, whether it's an amphibian, whether it's a bird, a reptile, a fish, an insect, we're all earthlings, human beings as well. We are all earthlings. And what do all earthlings have in common? 2 things. We all want to live. We all desire to live. That is what creates the equality in all of us. We all want to live. And the second thing, is we all avoid pain. Those two things make us equal. From the largest land animal on earth, the elephant, to the smallest, the insect, the ant, and everything in between, from the dog, the pig, to the human being, we all desire to live, and we all avoid pain. Now, if you were to walk outside right now and you saw somebody taking a baseball bat to a pig's head, would your emotional response not be the exact same thing? Of course, because the question for you is, what's the difference? What's the difference between the two? Right? Is there a difference? You might think one is cuter than the other, but that says more about you than anything about these two animals. You know, a lot of kids will say, well, the nose looks different. I say, but they both got a nose to smell. Some kids will say, well, he's got hooves and he's got paws. I say they both got feet to walk and run. Some kids say, well, his ears are going up and his ears are flappy. They both got 2 ears to hear. They both got 2 eyes to see. They both got a heart to beat and a mind to think. And the reason why we would take action for both of them is because we recognize the equality between them and not the difference. Any difference is insignificant. The similarities, though, are striking. We know they're equal, yet every time we sit down for a meal, we create that separation. We create that inequality. It's just like we knew the 2 circles were equal, red and blue, but all it takes is somebody to tell you a story. Now, what we most importantly recognize is that all animals have feelings. But how do we know? I mean, how do we really know? How do we even know that humans have feelings? Well, I mean, of these feelings, what's most important to you? Happiness, right? How do you know if somebody's happy? If I said to you right now, this is the happiest moment in my life, would you believe me? Hopefully not, no offense. So, how are you going to tell if somebody's happy? They're smiling, they're laughing. I could take somebody in this room who doesn't speak your language, but you can tell how they're feeling by their expressions, the sounds. It doesn't have to do with a language, though. What about other animals? Well, they wag their tail, they bark, they jump up and down, they play with each other, they lick. So all these are signs of how they feel. What about pain, though? If I said to you right now, my right hand is killing me, would you believe me? I haven't given you any signs. It might, though. It might be killing me. There's only one person in this room who knows if it's actually killing me. That's me, of course. If I say, well, let's say I was to trip over my feet here, though, and nail my head against the side of this table, start bleeding profusely out of my head, and I'm screaming on the ground, would you believe I'm in pain? Of course, I'm showing the signs. Here's a test. You take your hand, you put it over a flame, what happens? Burns, right? What's your reaction? Pull back and scream. You take a dog's paw, put it over a flame. What's his reaction? Same thing. Pull back and scream. You take a pig's leg, put it over a flame. Same reaction. You take a dog, a pig, a cow, a chicken, a goat, a duck, a horse, a rat, a mouse, any animal that's living, put a body part of the flame, they all have the same reaction. You take a fish out of water, and what's their reaction? Start flopping around. Why? They can't breathe. You want to know what it feels like to be a fish out of water? Have your loved one put your head underwater and not let go. It really wouldn't be your loved one, though, if they're doing that. That's what it feels like. Of course fish have feelings. They're not vegetables. If you take a vegetable, you take a plant, you take a strawberry, and you put it over a flame, and what happens? It melts. It doesn't have feet to run away. It doesn't have a mouth to scream, a nose to smell, eyes to see, ears to hear, a heart to beat, and a mind to think. And a lot of kids will like to give this one. Before you say, well, plants have feelings, they don't have a nervous system. They don't have a nervous system. Without a nervous system, they can't feel pain and happiness the way that animals and humans can. So the question is, when did we learn this? When did we learn that animals have feelings? Hopefully this isn't the first day that you learned this, right? When you were younger, right? And how did you learn it? Maybe you had a cat or dog. All you have to do is go outside and just experience any of the animals outside. And if they run from you, it means they're scared. If they come up to you, you probably have food or something and they want it. So we understand this through the experiences we have. In fact, think about the books that were read to you as a child, the songs you listened to, and how about the movies? Now think about the movies we show to our kids. What do all these movies have in common? What are they about? What kind of animals? Farmed animals. Even fish are being farmed. You have pigs, chickens, cows, and fish. These are all the animals we eat. What's the common theme in these movies? They're running. Yeah, they're being saved. No animal wants to die. No animal wants to be dinner on your plate. And we root for these animals. You take even the biggest pork eater in the world, he's rooting for Wilbur. Nobody wants to see Wilbur made into bacon at the end of that film. Chicken Run. We root for the chickens. Now, I guarantee there are 1,000 people, watching Chicken Run. Go, chickens, go. While eating a KFC bucket of chicken wings. Because they're not making that connection. Babe. How many kids watch the movie Babe, fall in love with Babe, and then go home and are fed Babe unknowingly by their parents? So we're teaching kids to love these animals, but eat them too. And this is the closest thing you'll come to see their reality in the Matrix, in the story we've told ourselves. And most of the times, unfortunately, the closest thing we'll come to is in cartoon form. And what is it, by Pixar and Disney, nonetheless. But today we step outside the Matrix, and generally speaking, when I go into a high school classroom, I show Meet Your Meat. If you haven't seen this video, if you still are eating meat.
Okay, we're gonna stop there because we just have so much class time. And I think you got the gist of the movie. Just kind of curious. So if anybody has any comments, any thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Hey, Charlie, what was that video called?
Yeah, so that video is 101 Reasons to Go Vegan. It's
Okay.
on YouTube.
Thank you.
It really is good. He has such good analogies. I could really relate to so many things that he has to say. And
Yeah.
I was caught on I thought the blue was larger than the red.
Yeah, I like it, and I think it's a good video to maybe show kids.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Velvet.
You are welcome. I was like half listening and doing dishes, so it's been kind of a crazy night. So
He's pretty engaging. I think you'll enjoy. Every time I hear it, I've heard it a number of times. It's always I find it interesting and engaging.
Charlie, my sister's oldest child in her 60s was eating already vegan, and everybody else was eating the meat. And so I'm amazed now. I can put the two and two together. She was very adamant not eating the meat, and apparently because she had a love for animals.
Yeah.
And I never put that together because of the slaughtering, the pain, now it's more than natural not to eat that,
Yes.
So, but when she was not eating it, I thought, how weird, but she never explained it, how she felt about it, My sister said, well, she doesn't like, animals being killed, but I mean, I thought, big deal, this food you got to eat, But now I got the education and I can put it together. And I totally agree with what he said, and it makes more sense now.
Great. Glad you found value in that.
Yeah, it's I put it together now.
Anyone else?
We'll be talking about osteoporosis and bone health next week. So we'll be talking about calcium and dairy, dispelling that myth. Can blend that right in for off to today.
Okay, great. And bone health.
Yeah, that's next week.
Okay, great. And tomorrow I'm excited to be able to give a presentation to the med students at nutrition and medicine. And when we get the recording, Scott will put it on the website and you can kind of see what it's about, and kind of looking forward to that. Gonna have some fun.
You're just doing it solo? You don't have a guest speaker?
I'm the guest speaker.
Okay. Who's going to be the MC?
I decided, last year I decided we were going to have a number of, people give their stories and the other thing. But this year I decided that there were so many topics that I wanted to cover, that I wanted to play some of those videos on various things, how not to die from heart disease and diabetes and the other things, that I put together this 2-hour session because I was going to do the same session in Idaho in March at a medical conference. And so I thought this would be a good practice run. So I'm kind of excited to do that. So Lisa, you have something, go ahead and unmute and speak up.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am excited to be starting our next book, our last book of the year. And I have a little survey for anyone who's interested so that we can pick out our next book. And I've only gotten 8 responses so far. So I'm hoping we get a little bit more this week. There will be students who will be in the book club too, and they really enjoy getting to see lifestyle medicine from both the provider perspective and from you all as patients. So that'll be exciting.
Susan?
You're mute. Looks like you're muted.
I haven't gotten a survey. You said you sent them out already in emails?
I did. I sent it out last
Yeah.
week or so, but it's also in the chat and maybe in Scott's email from Sunday. I'm not sure. But
I don't know how to retrieve the chats, but what day did you send it? I didn't get it, and I'll just look by I guess I could just look under Lisa Chick.
Yeah. Do you normally get the book club
Yeah.
emails? Okay. Maybe check your
Yeah.
junk file in case it went there.
I was just wondering if that was why you only got 8. Maybe other people haven't gotten the emails either. Yeah, I'll check, but did you send it in like a few days ago?
yes, I'll double check too and make sure that you get it.
Yeah, I didn't get it either. This is Dave.
Okay, I'll double check. Thank you.
So
All right.
Lisa, I want to thank you because I was looking through my book and my wife got The Body Keeps the Score. I had, got busy and never read it. And over the last few days I have, only because you had it as one of your books in the book club and I wasn't able to make those sessions. So thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. That was one suggested by the students, so they all really enjoyed it too.
Yep. I've learned a bit so far. It's been good. All right. Who else? Anybody else have any last minute thoughts? We've been at this for an hour and a half and you've been very attentive, and I hope that it's been interesting for you at a minimum.
I wanted to ask you, are you going to have any guest speakers at your classes this year?
In this particular class, Tuesday night?
Not this Tuesday night, but throughout the year? Will you be having some?
I think she's talking about your nutrition and medicine, Charlie.
Right, that's what I.
Yeah, so in nutrition medicine, we have guest speakers that are going to be, there's Lori Marbus. She's an MD who has does a lot of different podcasts and is a plant-based person, very likable and entertaining in my estimation. Then we have Stephanie Polizzi, who's a registered dietitian. And then we have Batiste, Columbus Batiste, who's a cardiologist who is a strong promoter of diversity and discusses soul foods and other kinds of things. And he's a very engaging, interesting speaker. That's who we have lined up so far. And I don't have other dates yet. So yes, there will, that's the long answer to yes.
Okay, I'll keep my eye open. Thank you.
Yeah, and Scott puts that in, I'm not sure where you put it in nutrition and medicine. You can go back.
I'll show you.
You can go back and see this last year's lectures were really good. If you haven't seen them, I would encourage you to listen to them.
So I have it here under class archives. So if you click on class archives,
we had John
all the classes
McDougall
here. And then here it is, nutrition and medicine lecture. So click on that. And it's the whole year. So a year ago, September was the Real People, Real Stories. And we had Dr. McDougall, Chef AJ, Dr. Scott Stoll. This was role of plant-based nutrition in one medicine. I think it was a couple of at least a veterinarian was one of them. I think
Yeah,
was that
a
one.
couple veterinarians.
And then this is Dr. Brooke Goldner, which is the Goodbye Lupus, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease author and lecturer. And then we had a dietitian,
Med
that
student,
Charlie knows.
dietitian.
And then Dr. Anthony Lim, who's the medical director for the McDougall program, was April. So those are the ones we have from this past year.
Patricia,
I'll put up the
every
numbers.
single one of those sessions were really had value. Were
Mhm.
engaging and interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. God, this has been fun.
Let's do it again next week.
Okay, let's do it again. I'll run. One last question.
Oh, I don't have any question, but I have a little comment. Earlier this evening, I think Scott and you both made some blanket statements about India that I didn't really appreciate.
Oh, well,
yeah.
tell us.
Well, it's true that more people are eating meat. It is also true that more people are going to eat pizza and processed food, and that there is more of diabetes and high blood pressure and so on. But still, I would say at least half of the people in India are still vegetarians. It's true that not all of the diet is, unprocessed. It's mostly processed. But I'm saying that things are much better in terms of the, standard American diet. We eat a lot better in India than in the US. And most of them are still vegetarians. It's true that in the cities, things are not as good as they should be. But I'm saying not all is lost yet in India.
Well, thank you for clarifying that issue for us. You are the expert on India, and we're just kind of, listening to what some of our mentors are saying about how the areas that used to be healthy are no longer healthy because they've taken on the Western diet, and that's where we were coming from. But
yeah, sure. In the cities, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, the patients I've had that are from rural Africa, rural Asian countries, India, I have many patients from all over the world, and they, when I tell them how they should eat, they say, "Oh, you're telling me to eat like someone that doesn't have any money from my country." So someone from India would say, "Oh, you want me to eat? If I had no money and I lived in India, that's the way I would eat." Or if I was from Kenya, or I have patients from Kenya, and "Oh, you're telling me to eat the foods that I would eat if I had no money," someone that has no money in Kenya. So as people get more in places that are more affluent, they tend to trend towards a more westernized diet. So yeah, I wasn't referring to a blanket statement about the entire country, just that as a country, their rates of disease are going up to similar rates that they are in America, because many people are westernizing their diet as they economically grow. So yeah,
that's very true.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and that's very true, and that is the big problem. The rich people with resources are eating a lot more westernized diet. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. It's important that we get the whole picture here.
Yeah.
Scott, it's been fun.
All right, we'll see you next week again.
And everybody.
Until
next week, have a good week. Stay healthy and happy.
Night.
Night.
Good night.
All right.